Alright, well I'm finally making a garden video again. It has been forever. I don't think I've made a video since November, but here is a glimpse into my spring garden. My tomatoes are getting really big, and I think in this garden I planted them too close together, but I've been trying to single stem everything, which I'll talk about in a second. Over here I have 26 tomato plants, so I'm going to make this video a little bit about tomatoes. So these are all indeterminate varieties, which means that they just vine and vine and vine and vine and they'll continue to produce throughout the season. This is a determinate variety, which is a bush type, and that means that they all produce basically at once and then it's done, and you don't have to, and see I have some tomatoes in there, I have some leaves from that tree that's fallen. You don't have to prune these. You really don't have to prune indeterminate, but I found that I get more fruit when I do the single stem method. So I'm going to talk about that in a second. But just a quick glance there. I just planted my cucumbers back on April 7th. So I have bush cucumber plants, which I've never had before, so I'm going to try those out. I have my kohlrabi, which I'm going to pull up. Kohlrabi is a real interesting fruit where you eat the bulb. The leaves are edible too if they haven't gone bad. Mine are kind of going bad, but see how there's like a root at the base of it? You eat it and it almost tastes like an apple. Well, it's not sweet like an apple, but it's crisp and crunchy like an apple. And then we have a bunch of sugar snap peas. My kids, we all came through and picked them this morning, but we got a bunch of sugar snap peas all throughout here, which I'm probably going to pull up in the next week or two. And then I'm going to plant sweet potatoes in here. My garlic that I planted way back when is still going good. I have strawberries, which I am really disappointed with. I'm probably going to pull them out and just never do strawberries again because the birds and the slugs are just eating them. And then I planted green beans around them. And the rest are tomatoes. Oh, the last thing I forgot to mention is that I did put some hay on the bottom of these tomato plants. I did that about a week ago. And it's an experiment I'm trying this year. I've never done it before with my tomatoes, but I'm hoping that will help prevent the spread of disease, because when the rain drops, then it won't splash onto the leaves as much. And also, as it starts to get really hot, it can help keep the roots cool. And I just keep my hay bales under here. Last year I actually bought too much, so I just keep it under my fig tree. And I got these at Mid-County Farm and Supply Store. I think it was $6 per bale, and I got 3 bales, and I mean, one would have been plenty for both my gardens. So, and then I also have my herbs over here: cilantro, basil, parsley, and oregano. I add those to salads; they taste super good. And I have some onions that our old owners had the sink sitting in the backyard when we moved in, so I used it as a gardening pot. So here in my other garden, we have our blueberry bushes. My lemon tree really just came to life. I put some peppermint over there, spearmint, can't remember. Lemon tree, satsuma tree, and they're looking good. They have all these cute little blossoms on them. You can see those. My kale and Swiss chard is still left from the winter heart season, and it is like massive. I don't know if you can really gauge, but these leaves are like bigger than my hands. I mean, they're huge. They're huge. Look at these over here. I mean, well, like these Swiss chard leaves. I mean, to give you an idea, they're just, and that's one of the smaller ones. They're just huge. So I've been making salads almost every single night, but it's like I can't eat it fast enough. Okay, so here we have my squash. So I planted buttercup, butternut, yellow crookneck squash, spaghetti squash, and zucchini back there. So again, I don't know, I may have planted those too close together, but I did plant them in mounds. We'll see how they do. Here I have peppers, which I put unknown pepper because the label fell out. I'm not really sure what kind they are. And then just tons of peppers throughout here. Last year my peppers did so good, and we love peppers. I mean, my kids will just come out and eat them just right off. So we have all different kinds of sweet peppers, red peppers, purple peppers. I have one jalapeno plant. And then over here I have 9 more tomato plants. So, okay, so this is what I'm talking about as far as pruning the single stem variety. So, as you can see, there's kind of one main stem that I've trained to go along. And I've done that by pruning out what are called suckers. So a lot of times, the best way I can describe it is think of like the armpit of the plant. Like you'll have the main stem and then you'll have a leaf shoot off, and then in between there'll be this little guy that will start coming up. And every time I see one of those, I pick it off, because if you don't pick it off, then what happens is that's going to create a whole new stem. So last year I got really like I felt bad picking them off, but what happened is my tomato plants just got huge and out of control, and they produce less fruit than the ones where I really did stick to a single stem. So the thing I have to remind myself is that, look, I got these little tomatoes going on here. The thing I have to remind myself is that a plant only has so much energy. And so by picking off those suckers, you're allowing the energy of the plant to go into producing fruit and not into producing more green. So basically every morning I just come out here and I just kind of look. I'm like, okay, here's the single stem, and look, I have a sucker coming off here. And actually it looks like that's the second. It looks like I already picked off a sucker there, and a second one grew out. And I just look up. Now you want to be really careful when you get to the top, because sometimes, like when you get to the top, I already picked this one off, but it's hard to tell which one is the sucker and which one is the fruit. And you don't want to pick off the flowers, because that's what's going to turn into a tomato. So sometimes when I get to the top, I wait till it gets a little bit bigger before I really pick it off, because otherwise sometimes it's just too hard to tell. So every morning I just kind of come through, I look at my leaves, especially in the other garden, because I think I planted those too close together. Some of the bottom leaves will look yellow and have these spots on them. And so I pick off as the plant gets bigger, I pick off any leaves that are touching the ground, any of the lower leaves, because I don't want that to pass disease, like to fester disease, or just anything that looks unhealthy, I'll pick off. So here's one. Okay, look at this. Remember last year I had this issue. I don't know if it's blight or what it is, but see, that looks really unhealthy. So what I do, and see, look, it's also the lowest leaf. So I just use my my finger and my thumb, and I just break it off right at the bottom. And then I throw these in the garbage can. You don't want these to go in your compost pile, because then if that is a disease, it will spread it to everything else. But look, it's still on here. So I'm really just gonna pinch off all these leaves, because I do not want this disease or whatever it is to take over the plant. So these are all kind of touching the ground anyway, so I don't really feel bad about breaking them off, because this plant is big enough that it's not going to go into shock if I cut off the bottom leaves. Now if it was a really tiny plant, you would want to worry about, you know, the plant not having enough leaves for photosynthesis or whatever, but because this plant is really big, I'm not worried. So you can see that I've really just single stemmed this plant. I'm going to come up here and take this sucker out. Okay, this is a really good example of when it's really hard to tell. So see, look, there's the sucker and there's the leaves. So if I'm going to take that sucker off, really I'm probably going to wait until this plant's a little bigger, but just for the sake of this video I'll show you. So you very carefully push that little guy down and pull it out. But see how I very easily could have broken off those flowers there? So that's where you want to be careful. And then, yeah, so every morning I just kind of come out here and quickly look at my plants, see if they're looking healthy or not. Make sure, another thing you want to make sure is that the branches are being supported by the rim. So what sometimes will happen is that, like say for example this one, say that branch was underneath, right, instead of on top. Well, as this branch gets bigger, it's going to be harder and harder to push it back over the rim, because that branch isn't going to be as flexible and pliable. So I really try and pull any branches that I can on top of the rim to make sure that as the plant grows, it's going to continue to be supported. Okay, see here how this plant doesn't look healthy, or I mean this branch. So I'm just going to pinch off that leaf, because I do not want that unhealthy part to transfer to the rest of the plant. Now this is kind of strange. It looks like I have, if you can see that, some tomatoes, but also some suckers shooting off here. So I'm going to just pinch off the suckers and leave those flowers there. So hopefully those tomatoes will turn. But see, I don't have spots on any of the other leaves, so that looks good. I'm going to come over here and look, so there's some unhealthy leaves. So I'm going to pinch off that branch, because I do not want that to take over the plant. Yeah, this one's giving me a hard time. There we go. And so, okay, so this is a good example. See, this branch is really big. So I'm just going to very gently lift that over so it's supported, and same thing over here. Just going to very gently because you don't want to break it. This plant, I'm not sure how well it's going to do. When it was younger, the stem broke, and so I tied it to this to kind of support it and hope it would heal back together, and it looks like it has because I can't see where it broke. But I mean, it has tomatoes on it. I'm just not sure. Like over here, the leaves look kind of wilted, so I'm not sure how well it's going to do. But that's what I do, you know, pretty much every morning. I just kind of come out here for 5 or 10 minutes with my kids and just kind of see how everything's going. Look, these are sunflowers that I planted. So hopefully those will get really, there's another one, that one's the biggest. Hopefully those will get really big and pretty. And then I haven't been using any fertilizer. I've just been, except for this stuff called Ocean Harvest. So let me go grab it and I'll show you what that looks like. All right, so this is the liquid fertilizer I use. It's called Ocean Harvest. And what's in it is fish, hydrolysate, I can't even say most of the stuff, kelp, molasses, whole bunch of stuff. But I am telling you, it works awesome. Now it's expensive. This whole container was $50, but you only use 1 or 2 ounces at a time, and you mix it with a whole gallon of water. So, I mean, I think I've used the whole time I've had it, I think I've used 6 ounces of this whole thing. So this is going to last me a really, really long time, and it works, you guys. I mean, I have no stock in that company. I'm not sponsored by them. And so then you just get a little sprayer like this. And then what I do is that about every 7 to 10 days, I just come out here and I just spray the leaves. So leaves have pores in them and it will soak up this stuff. I just spray the fruit. Now it smells like fish, so you don't want to really spray this on like lettuce or anything that you're going to be eating that day or the next day. But I just spray on every single one of my plants, every single kind of plant. And I am telling you, my plants have never looked healthier or bigger since I started using this. And then, yeah, that's what I use. So, hope that's helpful. If you guys have any questions about tomatoes, leave them in the comments below. And I hope you will give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my gardening channel. I'm going to try and update a lot more this season. Thanks, guys.